Hello, this is George. He didn't feel like coming inside when I was shooting the video, and I'm not gonna make him. He wants to lay on the porch, it's a nice day out, and he has every right to. George, purr for the nice people. Oh, yes. And he doesn't like sitting on my lap generally, so it's hard to keep him in frame. But I wanted him to be in the video because he is my co-pilot and compatriot for all the videos that I make, and a source of great comfort. And I love him, and he's the best boy. Oh, yes, my George. Okay, happy 1000. Thank you. Thank you all. And thanks from George. Hello, and welcome to my 1000 subscribers special. I'm very excited to have reached this point. It took me about a year to get to 1000 subs from zero, and I'd always figured that what I wanted to do, highlight lesser known great comics, would be a hard sell. I know I cover some of the more popular stuff too, but the weird art stuff seems to have an audience as well, and I'm very glad for that. The idea was always to bring people in with things they've heard of and hopefully earn enough trust for them to click on things they hadn't heard of. I always try to give a good idea of what's in the program and a quick introduction so people have an idea right away if it's something they'd be interested in or not. And it seems to be working. Every episode doesn't do as well as I'd like them to, but none of them do so poorly that I feel is a waste of time making them. Anyway, I've been talking about this in my community post and it's in the title, so here's the reveal of my latest fan edit, a G1 style fan edit of Transformers from 2007. Refocusing the story on the robots by cutting most of the human plot lines from the film. I felt that wasn't enough though, and I wanted a more transformed experience, no pun intended, and so I did a second pass and did a few content edits to remove some of the goofier humor and make the film play better. And now it feels like a different movie, and that's always what I'm after with my fan edits. I like the original films fine, but I always felt the first one in particular could have stood less of a focus on the human characters. If this turns out to be popular, I might go on with the rest of the series, but I think the first movie is the one that benefits the most from this. Back when the effects to get them on screen were still the most expensive and difficult to do, and there were the least robot characters on both sides. Transformers is a property that's very close to my heart, actually. I had the original toys back in 1985 and loved the cartoon, and seeing the first movie was mind-blowing at such a young age. Even though Optimus dying affected me deeply, it didn't make me dislike the movie. Far from it, it gave the movie more weight and meaning, and showed a generation of kids that even the most powerful leaders aren't invincible. It taught me what death was long before RoboCop would nail that point home. I've always had an interest in non-human characters in societies like the Transformers, though, and I still love the toys. I tell you, the toys we get now are just astonishing to someone who grew up with the blocky half-metal G1 bots, though of course they still hold their own charm. Anyway, the point is, I love Transformers, and this fan edit is definitely a work of love. I don't hate the movies as they are, far from it, and I do find many of the characters charming. I was sorry to have to cut out so much of Anthony Anderson's performance, but the original movies still exist. This is just my little experiment to see what the bot-focused movie I wished for would have been like. Anyway, it's up to watch or download for free on my Google Drive with my other fan edits. Link is in the description of this video. I hope you enjoy it if you give it a chance. I also intended to do something special to celebrate 1000 subscribers. I didn't count on this video to be all that I did. Now that we're here though, I'm going to go off script and talk about the future of the channel. I know for one thing, I want to talk about the immediate future. I'm going to start on two big projects that I've been promising for a while. Batman No Man's Land and the Electric Blue arc of the Superman comics, which people have asked about in the comments for a while. But they're both going to be really big projects. I have to read the entire thing and get a handle on what stories are essential and what aren't, and then parse it out into, it's going to be multiple parts for both of them. But I am going to start on those, so, the more popular stuff is coming. But I also have a lot of weird art books that I want to focus on. Moonshadow, in particular, is the most beautiful book I think I've ever seen. I'd put it above Watchmen for the best comic ever made, honestly. Moonshadow by J.M. DeMatteis and painted by John Muth. The whole book's beautifully painted. And it's run through with all kinds of allegories and literature, kind of like Sandman, but about a young boy and his adventure through various planets and space and a coming-of-age story. Just very beautifully told. I also knew I wanted to do something special to celebrate 1000 subs. Thank you everyone for that. I hoped I'd reach this point. When I passed 500 I thought, oh, I might eventually make 1000, but this is bigger growth and faster and steadier growth than I'd expected. So really, thank you. I love knowing that people like what I do, that it has at least some cultural value. That was the whole point of this, was to see if I could give something back from what all this culture has given me. I grew up with these stories. They are what I've talked to friends and strangers about for so many years. There was a fan community long before the internet, and honestly it was a more positive experience talking to people at comic shops than you'll ever get talking to people online about comics now, and I'm very sad for that. But it's a very nerdy thing for people to come together about. The movies and adaptations all included. And my hope as a comics fan is that this will drive people to read more comics because there are better versions of every story that gets adapted on the page for you to enjoy. And this is also to see what a good adaptation could be like of these properties, give it some kind of performance and characters, show you how the movie plays in my mind when I read it. And it's a fun experience, and I really like doing it. I love getting this deeply into the stories and examining them from the perspective of every character to find where they all, how they all feel about everything at every moment. And to see it from a director's eye view of what would be the best story, what are the best emotional beats to hit, what can stand to be taken out, how it shall be paced. I love that aspect, and that's what comes out in my fan edits, is that structural storytelling angle. And I've always loved directors' commentaries, behind the scenes footage. I devour that stuff on Blu-rays and DVDs because it used to be really interesting to see how films are made, how special effects were achieved practically. Now it's all done with computers, so it's less interesting. But there are still some innovative films being made here and there. But I just enjoyed all this culture. I want to give something back to the world and especially to YouTube, which I've loved so much YouTube material. But the show is really derived from the radio shows I used to listen to as a kid. I've said my mom got me the Shadow radio tapes from the Orson Welles show when the 1994 Alec Baldwin movie came out, and that started me on radio shows in general. So, Superman, Batman show, anything you can think of, I probably listened to it. And I carried that interest onto audiobooks, and I just, a lot of, that's why I make the show accessible as an audio show as well. If you don't want to be looking at the image all the time, if you want to do things in other tabs, you want to use it screen off, I make sure it works for people as a radio show too. That's kind of my angle on it, and what I think I provide pretty well. And I do put a lot of effort in. There's 4 major steps to every episode that gets made. Pulling the images, where I decide what information I need to show on screen to talk about it, or perform it. Number 2, the script, when I decide what gets performed and what I'm going to describe and what gets truncated with narration. And then 3rd, the performance, where I find all the characters' voices and I get all the right takes that I'm going to need. I'll do many lines, I'll do several takes of to see what the best context would be. And you want to get those early in the recording process rather than re-recording later, because sometimes there's just a different sound, you've got the mic in a different position. So get it the first time is my advice on that angle, anything you're recording. And then finally, in the editing, where it all comes together and I have to pace out the timing of every line and make sure it feels like a scene when it's being played out, and see how the whole thing plays together. And I really love every phase of it. The editing is a bit of work sometimes. It takes me a while to get through. Sometimes I'm late by a few days. I'm sorry about that. But I will take on bigger projects than I can handle in the time frame. And but I always get it done. There's nothing unfinished that I haven't, gone beyond getting a few images and an idea for. But I'm going to start on Batman No Man's Land and Superman the Electric Blue art. Because I've been talking about them, people have been asking about them. I do this kind of off-brand, like the different Batman story, the Superman's death, the things that were big major changes. Aquaman's Hook Hand I've also got planned, but I'm promising right now to start on Batman No Man's Land and then on Electric Blue Superman in very short order. The next couple of months, they'll be in there. So give me a little time on those, but I know people love Batman. I have a lot of Batman primary fans. Batman always does the best numbers. That's why there's so many movies and everything about him. He's a safe bet. But I also want to do the off-brand, the weirder stuff. So Electric Blue Superman is one thing I loved when it was coming out. It had been really boring at that point. His powers had been the same. He'd been stronger, but that was like just a little thing with the parasite. This was a big change of state, and he had to relearn things all over again. And that's always fun, watching a hero learn how to use their powers. That's why so many series start out strong, because it's really good groundwork. Because you're getting into it, you're learning as they are, to put you in their shoes. It's just a really good idea, and it usually works pretty well. I've got to get around to the Ray sometimes. The Ray 1 through 6, Blaze of Power, is a really good hero origin story. And he had a really fun run. I love the Ray. Then lesser known stuff like that is what I want to focus on. But that's my immediate plans for the channel. I hope you watch and enjoy the fan edit. I'm going to wrap this up because it's getting over long. And thank you so much to all my 1,000 subscribers. I hope you don't all unsubscribe now, and this is a big prank on me, because I would just, I don't know. Why do I even think things like that? Because I'm self-destructive, and I'm barely able to keep myself together with positivity to keep putting out content. It has really been a rock and a solid place in my life and something for me to focus on when the rest of my life isn't going so well. It's been very helpful to have this outlet and exceptionally helpful to have it received positively. So thank you for all the comments, the likes, the supports, and the views. And you keep watching them, I'll keep making them. Here's to, I guess, the next 1,000 eventually. We'll see how long that takes. This has been about 2 years of a journey, so I'm really glad we got here. Thanks.